You either enjoy neonatal nursing or you will never go into it.
When everything around you is urgent, how do you stay calm in that situation?
You come in with that baby. It's not chaotic. Helps you to stay calm, knowing that your team has your back. We're all working together, jumping in, and we're doing what needs to be done.
Behind every nurse and doctor, there is a human soul with very real experiences on the outside.
Years later, they're still in my thoughts. Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody has something that they're holding on to. Everybody has. Hello, Maria. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate this time that we can spend together.
Oh, thank you, Eurika. So let's fire away with the first question. What first called you to neonatal nursing? Was there a moment where you just knew this was your path?
Well, in the beginning, when I was working at the hospital that I was working at, I was actually in the cardiothoracic and neurosurgery ICU. And occasionally we would get these babies in that had to come in for a procedure called skull remodeling. It's a plastic surgery of a kind. It is a cosmetic surgery of a kind, but it's a crucial cosmetic surgery for these children because for whatever reason, their skulls didn't develop properly. And that can have the knock-on effect of meaning that their brain is not going to grow properly because of the shape of the skull. And that was when I realized that I actually enjoyed working with the younger children, the babies, because these were all babies that came in. And so when the time came that I had to make a change, I requested a transfer to neonatal ICU. And initially I was terrified because these babies are so small. They are so small. And a lot of them are so ill. But within a couple of weeks, I realized that was where I had been heading towards. That was where I needed to be, because that was where I was rediscovering my joy in looking after patients, looking after people. So I haven't looked back. I love neonatal ICU. The babies, the patients that we have you can't compare them to anything else that you have. You either enjoy neonatal nursing or you will never go into it. It's not, oh, well, you can work there, but you're not necessarily going to enjoy it. No, you either love it or you're just not there.
I mean, neonatal care gives so much of your heart. Do you remember the first time you held a premature baby?
Oh yeah, that was pretty much the first day I was there. We had a baby that had been born very, very early, but by the time I was now there, the baby had an opportunity to grow. So even though technically that baby was still premature because the baby hadn't reached its due date yet, so it was still a premature baby, but the baby was already a couple of months old in the world. And that was to just hold this cute little child and, to give it some comfort and, to turn it over so that it could find a new comfortable spot to sleep in. And that was amazing.
And this is what this episode's about. It's shining a light on the work that is done in neonatal care. I don't think we hear enough about it. And actually, just going behind the scenes a little bit to the nurses and the doctors who care for both the babies and the parents on the ward. But let's just rewind back to your story. I know that we spoke offline about growing up and feeling like you weren't being heard. Does that correlate into now being the voice of those babies on the ward?
It does, because when you grow up as somebody that doesn't feel like you don't feel like you have a voice, you don't feel like you're speaking, and nobody is really listening. it's a very, very difficult feeling to grow up with because you feel marginalized. You feel, yeah, you feel marginalized. You don't feel like anybody is taking you seriously, and your your needs are not being fully met as a human being. So one of the things that you learn when you are a student nurse is that you are your patient's advocate. You are your patient's voice. Even if they have a voice, when somebody is ill, when they are in hospital, they are obviously in hospital because they are not well. And this goes regardless of whether you're an adult or a baby. You're in hospital because you are not well. If you do not have somebody that can stand for you, that can speak for you, then it becomes very, very difficult to get the proper care that you need. Um, and even a lot, a lot of the people that are admitted to hospital, they are not trained medically. They are not trained to know what signs and symptoms they need to look out for with regards to their illness. And this is the majority of people. Obviously, nurses and doctors do get ill and they do know what to look for, but the majority of the public don't. And as nurses and as doctors, we are trained to look for certain signs and symptoms. And then as nurses, we are our patients' advocates. We have to speak up and say, this is a trend we're noticing. This is what's happening. This is what the patient has expressed to us, their subjective experience. Because even though it's a subjective experience according to them, it is their experience and it needs to be noted, because
Yeah.
you can't as a medical person say, oh well, you don't show any signs of pain, but the person is saying that they are in pain. There are physical signs of pain, but if the person is still saying they are in pain, then that is something that you still need to investigate. Just because none of the physical signs are there, they might not be speaking about a physical pain. They might be speaking about an emotional pain, a mental pain.
Yeah.
They are in pain, and you need to investigate why.
And of course, a baby can't speak.
A baby cannot speak. And for years and years, for many, many years, there was this myth that babies don't feel pain, that children don't experience pain the way adults can. And it was simply because they couldn't tell us. They couldn't tell us. And much research has been conducted. And one of the very first, this was even before I was a neonatal, I went to a very, very interesting workshop that was being held by one of the big pharmaceutical companies that deals with pain medication. They had sponsored the workshop, but the speakers that were presenting their findings had not been paid by the pharmaceutical company. They were presenting their independent research. So they were like, they haven't been paid by the company. Their research is independent, and the medication that they're going to talk about is medication from all branches of the spectrum, and from all brands of known pharmaceutical medications. And what they were speaking specifically about is, how do pediatric patients experience pain? What can we as caregivers help with that? And do you know that with neonates and with small children up to like a certain age, I can't remember what age it is, a little bit of sugar water still helps to relieve pain.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Helps. It doesn't take the pain away, but it can
Hmm.
help. Obviously, you need to, if the child is in pain, you need to obviously relieve it, because any person that experiences pain, it causes a cascade of different enzymes and catecholamines and steroids and all kinds of things in your body. And it can cause long-term problems. So for people that are in chronic pain, they have they can have long-term issues because of the chronic pain that maybe cannot be managed properly because science just hasn't caught up. Science hasn't caught up with what kind of management people in chronic pain need.
Do you remember a time that you felt you had to advocate for a child, a little baby, with a doctor because you felt that they were in pain?
Yeah, again, this happened before I was a neonatal, and it was actually with one of the skull remodeling babies that we had. It didn't make sense to me that we were administering pain medication intramuscularly as an injection. It kind of, and I mean, these babies are on pretty strong pain medications, so we have to then give it as an injection, which in itself causes discomfort and distress. And, these babies are already in a lot of discomfort and distress. So I suggested to the anesthetist, who I have a great deal of respect for. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. I just said to him, is there not a better way that we can do this? Wouldn't it make sense to rather just have the medication as a continuous background infusion going intravenously into the drip? We can, we can adjust it as we need to, and it would be easier to reverse if there's too much medication on board. If there's too much pain medication on board, there are certain drugs that can reverse that. And we then started doing that from that baby onwards. We started then giving the medication intravenously, and it ended up actually working better for these babies because they were spared the distress of having a needle injecting them every 6 hours or every 8 hours. Their pain management was much better controlled. They were less crabby because pain makes you crabby. They were less crabby. They were able to sleep better. They were able to eat better. They were able to heal better. And I mean, to be fair, these babies, they were all under a year old. Okay, so they weren't neonates, but they were still babies. And they had very rudimentary verbal skills. So
I wish I had someone like you who helped me. It's just brought back a memory of being in hospital with my daughter. She was under a few months old, and I just remember the condition of her hand, how many times her hand was stabbed. And that alone caused me so much pain just to see all the puncture marks. They were trying to
yeah,
find a vein every single time. And I guess if we look at it from the mother's point of view, you're not only caring for the baby, you're also caring for the parent. How do you find the
and
strength to do that?
I mean, you see, the thing is this is the important thing because the parent is already the child's advocate, but they can only be a fully effective advocate if they know what is happening
Mm,
and they know why it's happening. Okay. So when it comes to babies and parents, it's very simple. You tell your parents what's going on, your baby's parents that you're looking after. You tell them what's going on. You tell them why things are being done. Because if they understand, they're more likely to be accepting of the treatment, and they're more likely to be facilitators in the treatment being given. We are no longer working under the assumption that family members and parents don't need to know what's going on. Okay.
mm,
We are moving toward what's called family centered care, where the family is involved in what is happening in the care of the child. And in certain centers, the neonatal units are set up so that the mom and the dad have the opportunity to stay with the child 24 hours a day. And they are giving the care to the baby. They are doing the baby changes, like the cares for the baby, like changing the nappy, giving the bottles, changing the bed linen, suctioning the baby. They're giving the medication. They're active participants in looking after the child. Okay. And when you have somebody that is an active participant, it makes it so much easier because you're not having to fight to get something done. Because when a person doesn't understand why something is needed, they're going to be, why are
mm.
you doing it? What does it need to
Yeah.
be done? They're argumentative, because they don't understand. So with regards to family, if the parents or the family of the child do not understand why things are being done, you are not going to win in getting the care needed for that child.
But also, good caring parents. Have you felt that at times there's been babies on the ward and the parents are not as active in their care, or
Yeah. No, we have.
how do you
This is
deal
the
with
thing
that?
with neonatal, you either have parents that are very involved, and that can be a good thing, or you have parents that are very minimally involved. And you obviously get like the in between as well. Sometimes we're made to feel like we're hotel staff, you know.
Right.
We're just there to we're the babysitter. We're there to cater for the child, and the parent is just the one that's going like, okay, well, get on with it, kind of thing. Very sort of blasé, and that can be frustrating because the whole thing about neonatal is that we're there to look after the baby, to make sure that the baby is in a good position to go home, is well enough to go home. Okay. At home, we're not there. It is
Mm.
now your responsibility as a parent to look after your child. We will teach you the tools you need to do that. So we will teach you how to change a nappy. We will teach you how to bath. We will teach you how to feed. We will teach you how to do all of the things that you need to do to look after your child. But we do have parents that come in that don't want to know.
And bearing in mind, these babies are still tiny. So I imagine
Yeah,
even when you've got the child to a certain point that he or she can be let go,
yeah.
they're still tiny and there's a
They're still
great deal
small.
of
Yeah,
care needed.
yeah.
Have you been
So
worried about
do
releasing a child?
we get concerned. We do have, we have our concerns. The only thing we can then do is we just say to the doctor, we have concerns about this child going home. The parents are not interested in
Mm.
doing anything, and then sometimes, depending on the situation, we will get social workers involved. Sometimes what does happen also is that the mother or the father will say, look, you know what, the child's granny is going to look after. And the child's granny is then a bomb, is absolute freaking bomb at looking after the baby because she's raised her children. She knows what to do, you know? And so when you're living in a multicultural society where different cultures have different ways of raising children, you do need to learn which cultures, like how they raise their children. Okay. And you have to be accepting of it because at the end of the day, this is their culture. Okay. You can still have concerns where, like, for example, if something is outside of the cultural norm, you can have concerns. We do bring it up with the doctors. We do sometimes get social workers involved. Okay. But at the end of the day, we cannot keep a child from going home with their parents unless there is a really, really good reason for it. And so far, we have not really had a need to keep a child from going home. And we do our best. We teach the parents as best as we can. It's up to the parents. You see, this is the thing that's interesting because under the South African Constitution, you have rights and responsibilities as a patient. Okay, it's your right to receive the best care that you can, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you stay healthy. And it's the same thing. You have the right to be taught by us on how to look after your baby. It's your responsibility to actually learn and then go home and enact what you have learned.
Well, you brought it up. Let's talk about the difference between the UK and South Africa in neonatal care. And this is what's so brilliant about this conversation is we spoke offline. In South Africa, you have to have medical insurance in order to get treatment. In the UK, we have the national health system, which is access for everybody. What happens in South Africa if that family, that couple don't have insurance?
We do have government hospitals, and our government hospitals' neonatal units are really good. The big difference between a government neonatal hospital or unit and a private neonatal unit is that in the government hospital, there is a doctor that is literally on site 24/7. Okay. There is not many doctors for many babies in the that sounds terrible because there is actually, but in the sense that in private hospitals, you will have a group of doctors that have a practice. So at any given time, with your babies that have been admitted, they might be with XYZ practice or ABC practice or, you know, the different practices. And you
Mm.
have the doctors within those practices that then come and see the child. Okay. In the government hospital, there are no doctor practices. There will be many pediatricians or neonatal specialists that will come and see the babies, but they don't belong to one practice. They are
Right.
the government doctors. They will come and see the child. There is a doctor on site 24/7, okay, which can make things a lot easier in an emergency situation. In the private sector, we have doctors that are amazing and we can phone them and they will be there within minutes.
I
Okay.
think you told me a story. You can phone a doctor at 3 o'clock in the morning and they will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they will come.
Eureka, actually, I should say to the audience, you've just come off a 12-hour shift at the hospital.
Well, that was yesterday. So I have had some recovery time. But I worked Wednesday night and Thursday night. Both of those are 12-hour shifts. We
Yes.
start at 7 in the evening and we finish at 7 in the morning.
Wow. Was it
Yeah.
quads? I think you were saying offline was a potential for quads.
Potential for quads. They are still around, but nothing's happened yet. So that's good because they need more time. They need more time.
Right. Okay. Do you mean they're still not born yet? Or they're actually
No.
right.
They're still in utero. Thing with multiple births is that they frequently come early, and the more babies you have, the potential for the earlier, the more premature that the babies will be.
Wow.
So any extra time that those babies can have in utero to mature is fantastic. So there's the potential for them. I'm not sure if they're still in the hospital or not, but so far they're staying in, and that's good. They need more time. And then we just playing it by ear to see what's happening.
Well, I mean that'll be all hands on deck if they arrive really early
Yeah,
to have
yeah.
quads. So
Mhm.
let's talk about confidence there. When everything around you is urgent, how do you stay calm in that situation?
You see, this is where the benefit of training and practicing comes in. In your training, you get taught how to do things, and there's a system involved in doing stuff, and you're not doing things blindly, you're doing things based on evidence. Okay, so we do evidence-based practice. What that then means is that, for example, when a baby is delivered, okay, so with neonatal staff, we usually only get called when there's a cesarean and when there is a problem with the baby.
Right.
So there's things that we know we need to do. We need to do this, we need to do that, we need to have things ready, we need to ensure that the admission bed is properly set up. So there's steps we take. And in having all of that preparation done ahead of time helps then to ensure that when you come in with that baby, it's not chaotic. Okay. It is chaos if you're looking at it from the outside. It can look pretty chaotic because you have people running and getting things and bringing things, but it's organized. It's an organized chaos. And it's organized in the sense that everybody knows what their part is because you would have figured it out ahead of time. So, for example, you'll have somebody that will catch the baby. We call it catching the baby, or go and get the baby from theater. Okay, you then come in and there's things you do. You weigh the baby, you measure the baby, you get the baby connected to the monitors, you do the observations. There's steps that need to be taken, and those steps don't change. Okay.
Mm.
So the only time that you would maybe delay certain steps is if the baby needs immediate resuscitation. That obviously takes precedence. Okay. And you're following the doctor's lead on that. So if the baby is that unwell and they need immediate resuscitation, the doctor is with you and you following the doctor's lead. The doctor will tell you what they need and you just make sure that you have it all ready. Okay. And this is why all units have emergency trolleys or emergency trays with equipment at hand, immediately at hand. Everybody is so well versed in what their role is that it becomes seamless teamwork after a time. We've all worked together for so long that we know each other's rhythms, and it helps you to stay calm knowing that your team has your back. We're all working together. And this is the thing with having a good, efficient unit, is that everybody works together as a team. It is a multidisciplinary team. You're not doing something on your own. You're doing it with backup.
Well, that's
And that helps to build your confidence
mm,
because like, for example, I have my limits in XYZ. Somebody else has their strengths in what my limits are. And that is how we're able to work together, because we know each other's strengths and weaknesses and we're able to cover that gap.
well. Let's just get underneath that a little bit. The emotional and mental health side of working in neonatal ICU. Um, it's going to have had an impact on you emotionally. And you
Yeah.
said about resuscitating babies, but also you have a very emotional mother or father. How do you de-stress or rebalance yourself after a shift where you've had to resuscitate a baby or whether you've actually lost a baby?
That is okay, wait. That can be difficult.
Mm.
When when you've had an unsuccessful resus, okay, or you've had a baby that's taken a turn and passed away before you even got to resus, that is very, very difficult on everyone.
Mm.
Um, it's very difficult on the staff, and it's very difficult, obviously, on the family. Okay, they have just lost their baby, and there is no way to even comprehend what that can feel like unless you yourself have lost a child. And even then, everybody's grief is different. The initial thing that we do is we support the family. So we do what we can to make little keepsakes for a memory box, okay? Because we do not pretend that babies have not existed. We make a little
Yeah.
keepsakes. We make a little memory box for that family because they need to know that their child is remembered.
Oh. Mm.
Okay, they were there. So we will do footprints. We will maybe, if the baby's got hair, we'll cut a little lock
Oh.
of hair and we'll give them like a bereavement card and we'll give them these little keepsakes. Okay. We allow them as much time as possible that they want to sit with the baby before the funeral services or whoever comes and collects the baby. Okay. From a staff point of view, we need to kind of, it's not hide our grief. We need to temper our grief because we grieve with the families that have lost their children. And you can see I'm tearing up. We do. We grieve with those families, but it's not our family. Some parents appreciate when you get tearful, and some parents don't. They get resentful. because it's like, who are you to cry over my dead baby? And it does then depend. Okay, we do our grieving afterwards. We do it amongst ourselves, privately. We do have debriefing counselors that come in, particularly if it's been a really sort of shocking event that happened, a really like big unexpected something that happened, or if it was a particularly difficult resuscitation, we do have debriefing counselors that come in. Otherwise, we just debrief amongst ourselves. We discuss like what happened, where did we go wrong, what changed, what should have we done differently? Could we have done something differently? Did we do everything we needed to do? Was there more we could have done? And these are always questions that run through your mind afterwards, you know? And it's very important that we ask these questions, because this is how you find out maybe, yes, there was something you could have done differently. You then need to pinpoint, what was it that you could have done differently? Would it have made a really, really big difference, or would it have been negligible at the end of the day? Okay. A lot of the times, there is nothing we could have done differently. I would actually say probably 99.9% of times when something has happened, there isn't anything that we could have done that would have changed the outcome. Because when we go in to resuscitate a child, resuscitate a baby, again, there's steps. Everything goes down to steps. And we practice those steps on resuscitating dolls that have been made specifically for that. We practice on those. We practice our steps so that when it comes to a real life situation, we're not standing there going, oh my God, what do we do now? We're jumping in and we're doing what needs to be done.
I find it so difficult to hear and learn about this, because the parents obviously going through a grieving process, but so are the nurses. But are the nurses given some time to grieve? How do you process that grief? Your hospital's obviously got processes in place, but as a person, how do you process that grief?
Processing grief is a very, very individual thing. Okay. And a lot of times when I say something, people will go, oh my God, you're so cold. Part of nursing and being able to process a patient's death is realizing that we all die. We're all going to die. Understanding how something has happened, to me, is more helpful. If I
Yeah.
can understand how we got to the situation where we were in, that somebody has now died, I find I'm able to process it a lot better. Because, and I mean, I still grieve for some of the patients I've lost, and it's years later. They're still in my thoughts. And I've been fortunate in the sense that those patients that I still grieve, I am still in contact with their families, and we are able to still remember them and
Yeah.
remember them fondly. And these are patients that I looked after for a long term. So I had built a rapport with the family, and remembering them is helpful, not just for us as nurses, but also for the families if we have built a rapport with them. And in neonatal, you build a rapport with your families all the time, regardless of whether they're there for 2 days or whether they're there for 8 or 9 months. You build a rapport with the family. If you have built a good rapport with the family, it helps them in their grief as well, because it means that you've kept them up to date. They've known that maybe their child really wasn't well. And it's sad to say, but some babies are born with not a long expected lifespan.
Right.
There are some conditions that babies are born with that is not compatible with living. And in that case, the support starts really early, like immediately. Okay. In those kinds of situations, even if you don't feel like you have confidence, you need to project confidence. Because if you project a sense of panic, everybody else is going to panic. Like in the beginning, when I really wasn't 100% confident about maybe, what I needed to do, I still try to project the sense of confidence because it's important. Because if you can project that you're feeling confident, you sometimes begin to actually feel
It's a
confident.
visualization. Yeah.
It's a visualization. The other thing also is that you're not just doing things without checking with somebody, right? Our
Mm.
unit is very, very big on checking. We check everything, everything. Okay. So particularly when it comes to medication, we will say, okay, fine, baby so-and-so needs this much medication, and we check with each other. And that also helps to build your confidence because it helps to decrease maybe mistakes that you might have made because you're tired, because it's 3 o'clock in the morning
Yes.
and you've had a busy night and you've had maybe 2 or 3 admissions and you have babies that are unwell and you're tired. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why we check everything with each other. We say, okay, fine, you know what? I'm gonna do this, this, and this. And then somebody will go, oh no, wait, hang on a sec. Isn't it better if we just do like that instead? You, we discuss things. We talk about it.
And
Okay.
it's important to project that confidence because you've got lots of worried parents with their
Yeah. Well,
babies.
not at 3 o'clock in the morning, you don't, but during the day, yes, you do.
Y-
Because the thing is that at the end of the day, at the end of every decision that you're making, you need to say, this is somebody's baby. This is somebody's precious child. Would you want this for your precious child if it
Mm.
was, if you were in the situation? And I mean, that does help. It does help to sort of remain cognizant of what you're there for. You're there to make sure that this baby is getting the best care that they can, that they're getting the love and support that they can, but you're also looking after the parents. And I have found that working in neonatal, my confidence has built over time. Initially when I started there, I didn't have any confidence. I was terrified to even phone the doctors because I had not had the best experience with doctors in the adult
I was going
ICUs.
to ask that question. How are you treated by the doctors? I mean, there's different stories we hear here in the NHS.
Yeah, so I mean, like in the adult ICU where I'd been working, some of the doctors were just absolutely lovely. You got spoken to with respect, you got treated with respect. And then you have other doctors that don't. A lot of bullying,
Mm.
you know. Um, and it's not just the doctors that are doing the bullying, it's your colleagues that are also sometimes doing the bullying. And it breaks your confidence down. You have imposter syndrome like 24/7. And you think
Wow.
like, oh my God, like when are these people gonna realize I don't actually know what I'm doing? And you do. You do know what
Wow.
you're doing. You're just being told that you're incompetent when in actual fact you're not.
That's challenging your self-worth. But I wonder
Yes.
also, you're having to speak on behalf of the babies who've got no voice. And we've linked that back to also your childhood, Eureka, about
Yeah.
not having a voice and how that's really shaped you a- into the person that you are today, that you are speaking on behalf of these children.
It was actually, yeah, because there was a time in high school where I was going through a really, really bad time. A really bad time. And it was related to other things that had happened in my childhood, like earlier in my childhood. And I eventually got to the point where I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And I moved in with my aunties. I moved out my own house and I moved in with my aunties. And I continued going to school, but living out of my house, out of where I should have been with my parents. And before that, things had happened and I had not I had no voice. I didn't have a voice because I was saying, this is what I need. And it wasn't unreasonable.
Mm.
It wasn't an unreasonable demand. It wasn't because it was a demand. I'm not going to say it was a request. It was a demand. It wasn't an unreasonable demand like, oh, I need a new Gucci handbag. That wasn't even, that wasn't even in the realm of reality. My demand was, I need to feel safe in my own home.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was my demand.
Mm.
And that is very, very basic need. And I did not feel safe in my own home. So I left because nobody was listening. So I took it into my own hands to give me what I needed.
And so this strength that you found during that time has really been the story of your journey. And just, I guess you came into neonatal care, but you've carried that strength with you to be the advocate of these children, and how that really links to the powerhouse that you are today. You've been doing this for quite some time, and
You
how your
see,
confidence has grown.
I I have to say I loved my mother a lot. And there is a point to this. I loved my mother a lot. Okay. And she taught me to be independent. She taught me to think for myself. She taught me to question everything because my mother was a nurse and we do evidence-based practice. You know, you need to think about the science behind things. You need to think about the logic behind things. You need to question everything. Okay. But my mother had her faults. She had blind spots. And it was one of her blind spots that basically made my house life, my home life, very, very difficult when I was in high school. And as much as I love my mother, that was one of the things I can never forgive her for, is that during that period when I needed the safety and security, I didn't have it. And I mean, it's very difficult for me to talk about this because I hold my mother in very high regard, but it's also realizing my mother was human
Yes.
and she had blind spots. Okay. But it was the basis that she'd given me about questioning everything. Being able to have an opinion wasn't always heard, but being able to have an opinion, being able to be independent, that then started the process of me being able to say, well, if you're not going to give me what I want, I'm going to take it. And it wasn't easy. It really, really wasn't easy. I went through major, big mental health shifts throughout growing up, becoming who I am.
Yeah.
I was suicidal at one point. I went into an unbelievably deep depression when my mother died, that you couldn't even have a conversation with me because I was just so far gone in my own mind. I had a breakdown after my mother died, and it was almost impossible to get back from that. I went into such a deep, dark place, and I was there for a long, long time. But it was after my mother died that I realized with therapy, thank God for therapy, that I
Yes.
realized that I was the only one that could make the changes because I was the only one that could find my own happy. So one of the things that the therapist actually said to me is she said to me, "Why are you waiting for happiness? Why aren't you making it yourself?" Instead of, because I mean, I used to read a lot of, all of these like really heartbreaking books and all of this negativity and all of that, and I never realized that I was pumping my soul full of negativity. And I then decided to change that. So the first step of changing that whole process was fake it till you make it. I faked being happy until I was happy.
Yeah.
But I didn't just leave it at that. I decided to cut out all negativity out of my life. If it makes me sad, I don't want to know about it.
Mm.
Okay. So I stopped watching the news because holy cow, the news is depressing. Stop watching the news. I stopped watching all of these stupid tearjerker things, reading tearjerker novels and stuff like that. I decided to just go on a path to find what made me happy, how I could make myself happy. And that's how it started. The process is far from complete. It's
Mm.
it's making yourself into who you want to be as a person is a continuous process. It's never ever complete. I had to relearn my confidence. I had to relearn my self-worth. I had to relearn a lot of things. And it's been long and it's been difficult. It's taken better part of 20 years.
Wow. I mean, thank you so much for sharing with us all that side of your story, because to begin with, we heard about what it's like to be in neonatal care, the procedures, the processes, the confidence that comes through education and following those procedures. But behind every nurse and doctor, there is a human soul with very real experiences on the outside, and also those experiences from your childhood that have shaped you as the person you are today. And you said about holding that your first premature baby and what that felt like. And this was your calling. So, where that comes from. And it obviously shows that you've got that healing, nurturing side of you that's come through this journey. So, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that with us all.
Just to say, as much joy as holding my first premature baby was, there is one joy that overshines that every single time. And that is when I'm holding the baby for the last time before handing it to mom and
Oh,
dad so they can take the baby home.
oh,
That is what it
yeah.
is. And it's a special day for all of us. That is
Oh,
our favorite day, is when we get to hold baby to say goodbye because mom and dad is taking baby home.
oh, and well, because the baby's made it, and you've got that baby through, and they can go off and be a family. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Eureka, thank you so much for joining me today and just sharing your heartfelt story and helping me to shine a light on neonatal care and the real people behind this industry. I've just got a few questions for you before we
Sure.
come to an end.
Okay.
And I'm going to read this one straight out. For women listening who are holding on to a lot, emotionally, mentally, and physically, what would you whisper to them in their moments of doubt?
I would say to them that they're not alone. We are all holding on to things. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody has something that they're holding on to. Everybody has doubt. Everybody has self-worth issues. Find find your support system. Find somebody in your life that will give you
Absolutely.
support. I have a very amazing support system, and I call on them. If your support system can only offer you a shoulder, but you need somebody to talk things out with, get therapy. It's amazing what there's so many different therapy modalities, and they're all there to help you as a person work and process through things that are giving you grief, mental and emotional grief in your life. That is what they're there for, and use it. And then find somebody that inspires you, that can, and not a false sense of inspiration as in they're maybe physically beautiful on the outside. Somebody that is truly, truly beautiful inside and outside. They don't even have to be beautiful outside. Just somebody that inspires you to do better for yourself. Because when you're doing better for yourself and you are taking yourself to a new place of happiness, the confidence will come.
Yes,
You will still have moments of self doubt because you're human.
I can resonate with that totally.
But but if you're genuinely happy within yourself, you're
Mm.
more able to shut off that negative brain pattern, because the negative brain pattern goes along the lines of, you don't know what you're doing. What the hell? Why are you here? What is going on? How did you think you could possibly get this right? If you're able to redirect your brain to, instead of giving you negative false information, to, you've got this. Because my brain, I've had to teach my brain how to not lie to me, because it was lying to me and telling me that I didn't know something when I knew I did. I'd studied it, I'd written exams, I'd passed it, I'd done well. Okay. Then I just simply say, oh, well, you know what? I might have forgotten something, but I can go back and I can look at it again. I can relearn things that I might have forgotten.
Mm.
Okay. Because in nursing, like everything else, if you don't use it every day, it goes onto the back burner because your brain is being put with new information. So it's sometimes helpful to go back to the books and have a look at them again. And then you can then confidently, next time somebody asks you, do you remember how to remove a chest drain? You can with confidence go, of course I do, you know.
And be kind to yourself. And these things take time.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
look at Athena Women today. It takes time to put a podcast together, episode after
Being
episode.
kind to yourself is the hardest thing you're ever going to have to learn to do.
Yeah. Well, I've got another question for you on that note. Oh, there we go, my screen. What does confidence look like for you now as a woman, a caregiver, and a guide for others coming into this field?
Confidence for me now is being able to, with certainty, say, yes, I can help you with that. Or even saying, you know what, I'm not sure. Can I look that up and get back to you? Okay. Confidence to me means being able to be authentic to myself, not lying to myself. All right. I still do sometimes have like amazing delusions, in my own little world. I am the queen of my little world, but realizing that that is a delusion is a step number one.
Yeah.
Um, I am not the center of everyone's universe. I am only the center of my own.
Yeah.
But I have insecurity like everybody else. And I have moments of insecurity that are very at inconvenient times. Okay. And then I'll like say to my friend, I can't remember how to do this. Can you tell me how to do this quickly? And they'll be like, dude, you've got this. This is what you need to do. Asking for help
Speak
is
out.
also being confident.
Mhm.
Okay. Because, everybody's different. Helping other people feel better about themselves. I give random compliments to women. Okay. And I'm not doing it to be creepy. I'm doing it because sometimes you just need a compliment. Sometimes you need to be told that your hair looks amazing today, or that your dress just brings out the color of your eyes,
Mhm.
you know?
Just say what
And
you
if I
think.
can't find anything,
Mm.
yeah, if I can't find anything to compliment, I'll just say nothing.
But that's also
There's
women
nothing wrong
supporting
with
women.
false confidence,
True.
So I mean, but like sometimes when I say to, like, I remember I was walking to work the one night and there was this lady coming out and, oh wow, she looked amazing. She looked really amazing. And I said to her, wow, you look fantastic. I was like, this dress, it looks so good on you. And the smile she had,
Yeah.
because I had said she looked good.
Well.
And like her whole demeanor changed because she looked a little bit grumpy. And then when I said, you look fantastic and everything, her smile just lit up. And she was more beautiful for that amazing smile.
No.
I mean, she was really beautiful to start with, but once she smiled, that was a game changer. That was a game changer.
I think that does speak to your healing nature, though, too, because what you're saying in that moment is, but this woman's clearly stunning. I'm going to say something, but it's quite healing to do so, isn't it? To pay that
Yeah.
compliment. I don't think we hear it enough.
No, we don't. And, very frequently, nobody can break a woman down quite like another woman.
Yes.
And it is terrible. It is
Yeah.
terrible. we need to be bringing each other up. We need to be supporting each other. We need to be helping each other do better, be better, you know? And
Absolutely.
the
Drop a
only way,
100, guys.
the only way that we can do that is by making sure that we are there for each other.
Mm.
Um, you know, the thing that I always remember is I come from a family of really strong women, really, really strong women. There is not one woman in my family that is not opinionated about something, and they're not shy to share it. And the one thing that I will always remember is that when somebody in the family goes, "Oh, you know what? I'm having a really hard time," you have a whole bunch of women pitching up and helping you not have a hard time,
Mm.
you know? Um, and this is the thing that I think society has forgotten. I mean, a lot of people say that it takes a community to raise a child. Yes, it does. And historically, if you're looking at the community, who was the community? The community were women. Now, I'm not even going to go into gender roles because that is a whole nother
That's a
conversation.
whole different podcast episode, isn't
That's
it?
a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that traditionally, women have been there to support other women.
Mm.
Okay. Gender roles is a completely different thing. That does not mean that men have not been in the community supporting. They have been. Okay. But if you're looking at the bigger global picture, it's
Yes.
been women.
Well, Erica, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think it's fabulous. I love the direct and authentic. That's what this is all about. So kudos to the strong women in your family that you wouldn't be who you are today. I have one last question for you, if I
Yeah.
may.
Yeah.
What do you hope people never forget about the women who work behind scenes in neonatal care? The ones holding life together, one tiny breath at a time.
I would like people to remember that for many of us that work in neonatal, we are human. That's first and foremost. We are human. And even though none of those babies are ours, they don't belong to us. We never grew them. We will never raise them. We do give them all the love that we can
Yeah.
because that is also an important part of healing. And babies need to feel loved. So for those of us that can give all the love we can, we do. We give all the love we can. Unfortunately, in a lot of neonatal units, parents aren't able to be there all the time. So we give the love we know that the parents would give could they be there.
Thank you, Eureka. That was such a beautiful way to end this podcast episode today. And thank you guys so much for watching. And please subscribe to the next episode. Thank you again, Eureka. It was lovely having you.
Can't wait to speak to you again.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. See you on the next episode.